Hey friends, guess what we're doing today? We're making bouquets together. I was cutting my plants this morning hard because I was gone a week and there was a lot of things blooming, so want to make sure that we cut everything regularly to have really a steady production of cut flowers going on. So I'll walk you through what I have here in my buckets, and then I'll probably think we'll make like 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 bouquets together. I have some supplies where I'll walk you through, so follow me along. Let me walk you quickly through my supplies here. First and foremost, what I always love to use is a Flora Life crystal clear flower food. This is the clear 300, and I usually get that big canister. This lasts me through the season with all my bouquets, and I just then fill this over into a little more handy bottle for daily use. And yep, I have a few vases here. One of my favorite vases, I'm not sure if you have ever seen this, the amaranth vases. They are vases which you can screw open, and once you screw them open, a valve opens at the bottom so that you can like super easily change the water, and you can even take the bottom off to cut the stems of the blooms which you have in the vase and then just put it back together. I really love this one. I wish they had a little bit more different shapes or so. This is the only shape they have in different sizes, so I have a smaller one as well. This large one will most likely use for all my Lysianthus. And then I have already here some other vases. And what I also always love to use are mason jars, like the quart size. Target had those beautiful vintage looking ones, which I love for like when I'm giving bouquets away, which one of those bouquets will go away to family. So yeah, then of course always some snips, which are important. I have my tub truck here on the side for all like cut-offs, as we're here on a deck. Somewhere else, like in the garden, I don't care so much. It's like just flying off. No, it's not true. So it usually goes into a bucket or at least in a pile. And then I have here a little lazy Susan to make it easier for you to see it from all sides. Cool, so let me walk you a little bit through the plants I have here. I have the front bucket. In the front is mostly my dahlia, so all of the different dahlias which are blooming at the moment. The back bucket is, I would say, half or a little bit more than a third are my homegrown from seed Lysianthus, where I'm still very proud. So those babies have been started December 27th of 2022 and have been nurtured to be able to harvest them in August of 2023. Yes, you need patience to grow Lysianthus. It is supposedly one of the most difficult ones to grow. I just love them. You do need a little bit of patience and need to know a few specifics to get those seeds started. We'll cover that probably in another video sometime in the winter when I'm getting ready for those. But yeah, every time when I am like in the middle of like keeping them alive for so long, I'm asking myself, is it truly worth it? But then, I mean, just look at those blooms here. Like, let me find you some great examples here to show you up close. I mean, just look at those. They look like roses, and they also have a vase life of about 10 to 15 days. If you're good to them, exchange the water, give them some flower food. They last for a very long time, to the point that it's really hard to find any kind of other fillers to go with them, because they all get wilty before those. But aren't those gorgeous? My favorites. Yeah. And also look at the stem lengths, right? I have rarely other things which get as long as that, unless I cut it that long. So love those. And then of course we have a lot of my favorite filler here, the Ami in various different stages. Here's some basil, which we'll see. So if you want to make your flower bouquet smell amazing, because not all of those flowers, like Lysianthus looks great, doesn't have a scent at all. Dahlias, same thing, right? Look gorgeous and stunning, but don't smell. So I always look for something what can add some smell to the bouquets. And my favorite thing to do that is basil or mountain mint. Love them both to death. Whenever we have more space, I will probably have just like one large patch of mountain mint. It's also native here for us in Attleboro, Massachusetts. But yeah, just love it, how it looks, how it smells, how it holds up. It's one of the perfect filler. And the Ami is, I think, with the basil, a close second these days. Then I have also here a lot of cosmos. I had to hack the cosmos down hard. They didn't fare super well with the last rainstorm we had, so they got a more drastic haircut yesterday, but perfectly fine. They usually flush back, and a good haircut helps them to keep producing, because once a flower goes to seed, that is always when they start producing new blooms. So that is why it's so important to keep cutting. I always encourage my friends who get into flower growing, cut them and cut them hard. You will get just more blooms for it. And it's actually, for the dahlias, for example, it helps the tuber production as well, because from the moment a plant goes to seed, it takes up so much time to produce the pollen, the seed, and the seed heads, that it doesn't spend that energy on creating tubers anymore. So if you want to have plenty tubers from your dahlias, make sure you cut them, and you cut them plenty. So, but let me show you some of my favorite dahlias here. One of my favorite, I'm a sucker for white blooms. So the Blizzard over here is definitely one of my favorite ones. I think I have somewhat of like 5 or 6 plants of that in my garden this year, so I have plenty of those. And then one of my baby cakes, that's a Cozy Town baby cakes. This is still a little bit early to cut, but from the moment the leaves are in the back straight, this is a good moment to cut. That will open further in the vase and gives you really nice blooms. And this color almost goes with anything, right? You can lean it into the peachy color category. You can lean it also with those pinky stripes into the pink category. So I just love it. It goes literally with anything. Then one of my favorite other dahlias, which is a return from last year, and last year it was a favorite of mine as well. This is the Bloomquist Compare. This beauty changes over time depending on how the temperature goes. So at the moment it has a good amount of lavender already on the tips, but this will almost turn purple when it gets a little colder. So I hope I can show you that in a few weeks when September is cooling the temperatures a little bit down. But boy, do I love that one. It's like one of my favorite dahlias still in the garden. And then this one is a new entry this year, and I love it as well. You will see I'm a sucker for like white blush color palettes, so that's something what I just love in general and work with the most. And this is a Cozy Town K. And yeah, I mean, just look at that color pattern. It's so gorgeous, and it like fades away. It's just lovely. And then something very exciting, for me at least, those are 2 blooms of a seedling of mine, a first-year seedling, which I love more and more. The blooms are facing up nicely. They get also a color gradient. Not sure if you can see that in the camera nicely. It like fades out on the outside. It's super pretty, and it has also a really nice size as a ball shape. Those seeds came from Cozy Town, and yeah, what should I say? Cozy Town fan club over here. I'll try to grow all of her varieties. They all are rock stars in my garden. All right, let's get started. Let me actually move that a little. So I have already it's a funny vase, I know, but I love it. It's just such a nice vase to design with because of its structure. And yes, it has a face on it, but I just love it. I love the weird and funny things sometimes. So what I always do is when I start, I always try to think about like what is the focal point of an arrangement. So what is the one which should provide the wow effect? But typically I start to put some filler in. This gives me also a little bit of like structure in the vase already to keep certain stems in place, because in this vase, for example, I don't work with anything like chicken wire or so. It's typically not necessary for me. From the moment you have a little bit more wide open vase or like a compote or so, where you really want to get like creative with the branching and everything, that is where I typically use chicken wire. But for this vase and where I want to put it on my mantle, this typically serves well to get like wide on the outside and a little bit high, because we have like space there. So let's go with an filler here. Let's go with the with the Ami and some basil. Whoop. So this is also amazing stem length, although I did cut it that long because it's getting heavy on the branches and was leaning over, so I had to cut some more. I'll probably actually take just the sides over here and leave the large one. Whenever you do a bouquet, something that's really important is to make sure that no little leaves are in the vase later, because that is what will make the water spoil very fast. So that's something what you want to avoid. And then we'll just start putting some fillers in. If you want to have the best smelling basil, I would go for Johnny Seeds, the Myers lemon basil. It's the first time I'm growing it. I can't get my nose out of it. It legit smells like lemon. I've never seen that before. It's wild. It's so good. I love it. Basil can sometimes be a little bit of a diva as a filler. So I got it already this morning. Had it acclimate because sometimes it gets droopy for whatever reason. Not fully sure why, but it does. So for that reason, if you want to take a bouquet somewhere with basil, I would always recommend to have it sit there for a little while and acclimate, but then otherwise it's usually perfectly fine and actually lasts, at least for me, quite long in a vase. So I literally just give it like a little bit of structure to start with, and then I perfectly just wing it. There's no real magic or a real method to the madness, I would argue. It is all very specific of like, what do I have available right now, right? And then I'll just go with what pleases my eye. I think in general, I always try to like follow like the rule of 3 or so, to have like the colors repeating themselves a little bit and having the areas a little bit more structured. But this is how I usually go about it, I think intuitively to some extent. So I definitely want to have my Bloomquist Compare as a stunner here. And I always like check like how deep they go in it. And then just cut a little more. Nice. And then I have so many white dahlias, so I'll put probably a few whites on the outside. Yeah, so I grabbed some whites, and actually the Foxy Lady and the Cozy Town Kale I showed you, because they repeat the pinkish pattern. So let me put those whites in. It's a little bit long as well. So this is a white netty, a super cute little, just very like cream white ball, which I love as well. Happy to have it back. And this is called Bride to Be. This is more a water lily style dahlia. So like, you probably have heard me say that, but I'm a sucker for white blooms in general. It's a bummer that they are always so eaten up by the stupid bugs, but I don't care. I don't grow dahlias to sell them, so a little bit of bug damage is fine. I can live with it, and I'm sure my friends and family who get it can live with those ones. Beautiful as well. I always try to get a little bit of like different layers going, but generally I'm just tugging them in and see how it's going. So let me show you the progress over here. I also always try to keep in mind where I design or where I put a bouquet. So for me, I typically have bouquets always like faced in our living room at the wall, which means I don't need to take care of the back of the bouquet. So I basically just design it to face frontal. So yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind when you see me here. Let's put some zinnias in it. I have here a really cute combo. So this is I think a salmon zinnia, and those are great giant wine zinnias, so they are massive. I love them. And then a little itty bitty Lilliput rose. All right, and those I typically use like for, like, let's just say the basement portion of an bouquet. Not to say that that is any neglected portion, but they just fill out the space underneath the stunner and the showstopper so well. So that's where I love to use them, or the bigger ones, like flanking them on the sides, for example. You also probably see me here stripping off the leaves again, like if you don't need the foliage in the bouquet as an attractive or as like an focal point to add some more greenery, it's usually easier to design with just the stems without any foliage on it. But that is perfectly up to you and how you like it. And we're coming along over here. Nice. Oop, that one turned. I mean, just look at that, right? I love my flowers. All right, I think I'll use a little bit more of the army in the back. I didn't want to go too wild, but actually let me see the other one, how that is shaped. Because I like the stem length for that Lysianthus bouquet, which we do next. So yeah, I think that one is a little bit better to cut some smaller pieces. Otherwise, I can always go and get some more if we need to. This was a surprise to me this year. I was growing it for the first time, and boy, do I love it in all of its different shapes, like when it's blooming, when it's not blooming anymore, or where do I have it? Oh, here. When it produces its really, really beautiful seed head. Let me actually come a little closer. This was a surprise to me this year. Just look at how pretty it is. This is when it blooms, this is when it's done blooming, and this is its beautiful seed head, which, by the way, dries really, really nicely into a dark green. It doesn't turn brown for me, so I'll try to get a few more for winter so we can make some dry arrangements in the winter. All right, let me see. Now that's way too big. Oh, I didn't mean to use that. We have some smaller ones here. So, and they just provide really, really nice structure. Yeah, the only thing what I would say be aware of that if you take it in bloom, like with the white discs, it might sprinkle a little when it starts being done with it. So just an FYI. So, and I'll put that one. Like I always try to have like some really nice blooms, a little bit something spiky, a little bit of a disc. I think that's just a very, very pleasing combo for the eye. And that keeps on turning on me here. Alrighty, that starts to look really, really nice. I think we're very close to be done. I think I'll add a little bit of whimsy with some cosmos, like with some white cosmos, and then also with some purple cosmos. Yeah, as I mentioned, I cut those ones hard so you can see how deep I cut them. Don't be afraid to cut your flowers deep and lose a few flower buds. That is just what happens, and the plant will grow back stronger for what it's worth. So I know it's hard and it feels counterintuitive, but I promise you it will flush back and you will have a lot more blooms for it later. So let me put that one there. And maybe that one there. How does that look? No. And sometimes you decide, no, that wasn't the greatest idea, at least not to have it spike from the back. I'd rather have it go out on the side to not like take away from your wow factor. Yeah, I think that's better, although it can be a little bit shorter. And it's really, in the end, comes down to what you like, right? That is the fun with growing cut flowers and making your own bouquets. You can completely design what is pleasing to your eye, right? Let nobody ever tell you that it is an ugly bouquet if you love it. Might should print that on a mug. So here we have some white. And yeah, I'll think that is very, very beautiful. So let me put that over here. And sometimes it's also good to know when a bouquet is done, right? You don't need to like over cramp stuff into a bouquet. The more stems, the better. Sometimes just a few stems with some greenery and some fillers are so much pleasing to the eye because it's not so many things the eye have to like check out and make sense of. So simple and minimalistic is sometimes really, really great. So let's go with some simple and minimalistic for our Lysianthus. This will be a very tall one. We have next to our mantle a little like lower portion which has some more headroom. So I love to have some big bouquets over there, which we'll do next, but let me get some water quickly. I always love to put the water in first, especially for the taller bouquets, because it's otherwise awkward to go to the sink and fill them up, but also it provides a little bit more stable base. So just how I do it. I'm not sure if that's what everybody does, but that's how I do it. And just look at that length. So this, even for this vase, still way too much. So we'll cut those ones a little bit down. Might cut even a little bit more. That is sometimes a sad thing when, if you ask me, when you have like stem length like that and still have to cut it down, but nah, it's all fine and good. This is one where all the craze is about, the Roseanne Brown. It is like one of those which are, yeah, almost brown looking, right? That's where the name's coming from. And it almost has like a purpley undertone. I gotta say, I understand where the craze is coming from. I just love those like muted colors. I thought it was a little bit more moody than it is, but it really mixes well with all kinds of blushes whatsoever. So I love it. So another roseanne brown, also like, I mean, this is easily 2 feet, maybe even more. Probably actually, yeah, probably a little bit more. I'm tall, long arms, but yeah, really, really loving those. For sure will grow those ones again this year. So this was my second year growing Lysianthus. I wanted to make sure that the first year where I did it successfully wasn't just, I don't know, freak accident, I got lucky. But no, I was actually able to repeat it this year. And so after my success from last year, I wanted to try out as many varieties as I could get my hands on, and literally almost ordered all the varieties I could find on like Johnny's, Eden Brothers, and a couple other ones. Like literally I was sitting on the weekends, like was Googling where I could find Lysianthus varieties, and I think I found like 10 or so, and grew them all this year. And I gotta say, I am still loving the one I did last year. I did last year in a different color, but the shape, this is the Voyage, and the Voyage Champagne and the Voyage Light Pink are just like still my favorite. Again, like it's the color, like my color pattern. And I just like, I mean, how could you not love this one, right? It's like, ugh, such a sucker for those like muted, beautiful, blushy tones. Oh, and in case you wonder why they're all shaped like that, that was me not staking them this year. I was traveling a lot and had to make some sacrificial decisions in terms of like what I had time for on the weekends and whatnot. Staking the Lysianthus fell between the cracks because it was holding up actually quite nice on its own until we had some windstorms, and now they're all like kind of like flat and growing up. It's a little bit of a sad story, but nobody else to blame but me. So we'll work with it. And again, I'm not selling those ones, so there's no downside of it, and I'll just work with the bend. So perfectly fine. And again, nobody else to blame but me, but a few ones are straight. So yeah, I really love them. So I got to see which ones I'm really regrowing this year. The interesting thing, and I'm not sure if that was just the weather, how it worked out for me this year, but theoretically the varieties I grew and the varieties I put in were supposed to bloom staggered, like with like, I would say like a 6 weeks time frame of like the first blooms to the last ones. And I gotta say they all started to bud up and bloom pretty much at the same time. So for that reason, I don't think I will keep that next year necessarily in mind. So I'm just going with the varieties I love and just plant them and yeah, and use them as we go. I typically put them all in like Lysianthus only bouquets like we're doing here right now, because nothing else can hold up to that vase life like this. It's wild. Like I was briefly considering putting a couple into the dahlia ones, but it's really, it feels like a waste of bloom, because everything else will be wilted in this one very, very quickly compared to those ones, which will still look great after, yeah, a week and more, where, as we all know, the dahlias are here for a good time, but not for a long time. So, yeah, but we are starting to getting somewhere. And let me actually, a few fillers can live up to the same like lengths just because they start drying out and look nice dried out. So that's where the Army comes into the game as well. So we'll use those ones here to give it some structure as well and some whimsy. And here as well, again, like I'll design it with me facing the bouquet this way, so it has only one side to it. I can go a little bit shorter. And I'll show you in a second. Yeah, and from the moment the blooms are getting crowded, this is when you also be able to manipulate them a little bit better where you want them in the vase. So, great. And I also put some basil in it because the basil actually can hold up nicely as well. So let me actually put that on the side here. And I also love the seed heads from a basil. They just provide so much structure. So pretty. And the smell. Alrighty. So just a few more. Yeah, and typically I don't have such a setup. That is just for you guys here. Typically I do that very dirty, very sweaty early in the mornings after I cut them. Typically here on the deck, but facing the nice view that direction and just enjoying some peace and quiet playing with my flowers. But I know a bunch of you asked or suggested I should make a flower arranging video as well with all my beauties. So here we are. If you have any questions regarding any of the blooms or anything what you see here, please let me know in the comments, of course. And yeah, we'll hopefully have a few more videos like this year. Although it has been such a weird year for flowers, who knows how long they will stick around when we get a first frost or so. Yeah, we'll enjoy them as long as we have them. So. I'm always a little bit conservative in the beginning with the stem lengths. I don't want to cut off too much in the beginning. You can always cut more later, but you can't put it back. So I'm always careful with that. And yeah, we're getting somewhere. So look, whoop, move that a little bit here. Look at that so far. Oh, that needs to be tucked in there. And then always when I don't have as many colors of the same bloom, I always try to just distribute them a little bit around that they're not all showing up in the same area. And this was a favorite of mine last year. This is the Dabbellini White, super cute little, where is it? Super cute little white one. Itty bitty white one. That is one of the ones which are supposed to bloom first. Yeah, super cute. I had those ones in blue last year. Unfortunately, blue is not my favorite color, but the white ones are gorgeous, and yeah. But they're really small compared to the Voyage or the other ones I have here. Probably just a quarter of the size. Alrighty. And then I have that showstopper, which I'll definitely put on the top. Yeah. And actually, let me move you to mimic that on the other side. Again, if I have the option, I'll try to follow like loosely the rule of threes with my bouquets. The bugs are already coming for me here, so we got to hurry a little. Let me see. I always need to step back a little to see what's going on. Oh, what do we have here? Yeah, next year we'll definitely stake them. It's a little easier when they're straight. So, nice. So I was aiming for something very like light and airy. I think I've accomplished that with this one. So, all right. That was number 2. Ooh, yeah. And when we're done here, you of course get a close-up shot of those ones as well. All right, we gotta hurry because it's also dinner time and I'm hungry. So let's put the last blooms in here. So that is a bouquet which I'm giving away. So typically I don't cut it short for this type of vase because usually I keep in mind that people hopefully have a little bit of a larger vase at home. So I'll keep that a little bit taller in general. But let's go with the colored ones. Like a peachy style. And like the Foxy Lady is one of those which goes with any type of color as well. I really love those. And those are 2 Daisy Dukes. Those are new to me this year as well. A really, really nice color combo. Really barely hitting my bucket here. I gotta clean up when we're done here. Oh well. So some filler. Oh yeah. One of my favorite fillers as well is the Selway White. They're just coming back. They were a succession planted and then bunnies love them too much. So I really love those ones. Oh yeah, nice. Good. Move that one there. This one here. Beautiful. There we go. Look at that. Really nice and quick with some basil. And for the rest, I'll find another vase, but yeah, that is how I design my bouquets. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a different video. If you have any questions, again, let me know below in the comments. Always happy to talk flowers with you. And yeah, otherwise,